Under the fading glow of the April 1974 sunset, a chilling wind swept through the empty streets, carrying the breath of death itself. A young woman walked alone, her steps unsteady, her heart pounding. She had no idea that every step she took was leading her closer to the gates of hell. Then, an engine roared, shattering the silence. A car sped toward her like a beast hunting its prey, kicking up a cloud of dust. Headlights illuminated her terrified face for a split second before screech. The tires screamed against the pavement as the vehicle skidded to a stop. The door flung open. A dark figure lunged out. Tall, broad-shouldered. His eyes glowed with deranged excitement. A twisted grin curled on his lips. Before she could even scream, his iron grip locked around her throat. A violent yank crack. The sickening snap of bone echoed through the air. Her eyes rolled back, lips turning blue, trapped in silent, desperate agony. The nightmare was only beginning. In the suffocating darkness, the killer knelt beside her lifeless body. His blood-stained fingers slowly traced the fabric of her clothes before tearing them apart, piece by piece. He muttered feverish words, an unholy ritual performed in the name of his own twisted desires. The girl lay helpless, incapable of resistance. By the time the night swallowed them whole, his monstrous deed was done. He dragged the lifeless body into the forest. The skeletal branches of dead trees stretched out like the fingers of demons, welcoming their newest victim. A rustling sound broke the eerie stillness, then a low, guttural growl. The animals had already caught the scent of blood. And then, the chilling howl of a wolf pierced the night. Seattle, summer of 1974. Fear gripped the city like a vice. Young, beautiful women from the University of Washington were vanishing, swallowed by the darkness without a trace. Linda, Jochen, Susan, Brenda, Roberta, Donna. Their names became whispers of terror, spoken behind locked doors, but no one could find them. No footprints. No evidence. Nothing but silence. The police were frantic, scouring every alley, every desolate road, every wooded trail. But the predator was always one step ahead, watching, waiting, laughing at their helplessness. And then, a flicker of hope emerged in the nightmare. Elizabeth, his ex-girlfriend, stood trembling at the police station. Fear clung to her like a second skin. Her voice quivered as she spoke his name. Ted. The charming, intelligent man she once loved. The man who stalked women at night, his eyes gleaming like a predator closing in on its prey. She had seen the handbags of strange women in his apartment. She had found a knife hidden beneath the car seat. And she remembered on the night Brenda Ball disappeared, Ted had left with a vague excuse and returned late, his expression eerily cold. "I don't want to believe it," she whispered, "but everything points to him." The police listened. But could they believe it? No witnesses. No fingerprints. No hard evidence. Only a creeping fear spreading like an unstoppable plague. Ted Bundy, the killer with an angel's face, had begun his deadly game. And America had no idea that the worst nightmare was yet to come. From the dense forests of Washington, the specter of Ted Bundy slithered out like a venomous snake, leaving behind shattered corpses and the howls of wild beasts feasting on his victims. He did not stop, he never stopped. With the cunning mind of a law student who had once worked for the Crime Commission, he knew how to slip through the cracks of justice, sneering at the helplessness of the police. Utah was his next hunting ground. He arrived in Salt Lake City unnoticed, blending into the crowd like a gentleman of charm and sophistication. But beneath that polished facade were blood-stained hands and the gleaming eyes of a predator searching for fresh prey. Summer 1974. Melissa, the beloved daughter of the city's police chief, left home after a date, her heart light with hope for a peaceful evening. But Ted was waiting in the shadows, his cold smile already forming. He struck like a phantom of death, swinging a club with terrifying force. The sickening crack of breaking bone echoed in the night. Blood poured onto the pavement, staining the earth crimson. But he wasn't done. His bare hands wrapped around her throat, squeezing, savoring the final breath escaping her body. 9 days later, her decayed corpse was discovered deep in the woods. Her lifeless eyes, empty, staring into the void, seemed to scream the silent agony of her last moments. Utah reeled in horror. But Bundy? He laughed in the darkness and kept going. Nancy and Laura were next. 2 young women vanished into the night, their terrified screams devoured by the wind. Their bodies were later found discarded on a mountainside, brutalized with a baseball bat, raped, and left as a feast for scavengers. The people of Utah trembled. Their cries for help were lost in the howling wind, but Ted Bundy had already disappeared, leaving behind only terror and unanswered questions. The predator caught, or so they thought. Then came the fateful night. 2 a.m. Officer Bob patrolled a neighborhood still haunted by recent horrors when a suspicious vehicle glided past, its headlights dim, its presence eerie. Bob signaled for the car to stop. But Ted slammed the gas pedal. The engine roared, a banshee scream splitting the night. The chase was on. The car tore through winding roads at breakneck speed, tires screeching, sparks flying as metal scraped against stone. Bob gritted his teeth, hands gripping the wheel, forcing Bundy's car off the road. The crash was deafening. The door creaked open. Ted Bundy stepped out, his piercing gaze locked onto the officer like a wolf sizing up its prey. Then Bob checked the car. A duffel bag. Inside, a ski mask, handcuffs, a hunting knife, an ice pick, the tools of a monster. Ted was arrested. But his smile? Colder than death itself. The escape and the hunt begins again. Bundy would not be caged. One morning in a Colorado courthouse, as the guards let their guard down, he sprang into action. In a heartbeat, he lunged for the second-floor window, leaping from a height of 8 meters. Gasps. Screams. And then he ran. Barefoot. Bleeding. He tore through the streets, darted into the wilderness, his breath ragged, his heartbeat a war drum pounding in his chest. "You have to go. Don't stop," he growled at himself, his mind a frenzy of desperate thoughts. The entire city went into lockdown. Hundreds of police officers, search dogs, helicopters scoured the landscape. But Bundy was gone. Swallowed by the storm. 6 days later, weakened by hunger, filthy and unrecognizable, he was caught stealing a car. When they found him, he was skeletal, his clothes in tatters, his body trembling from exhaustion. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Locked up in Utah, Bundy's mind churned with schemes. He found a weakness in his cell, a hole in the ceiling. One night, he squeezed through, slithered into the ventilation, stole a guard's uniform, and walked out the front door. Like a ghost. Like an unstoppable nightmare. Florida was next. And there, his reign of terror would reach its blood-soaked climax. Bundy had turned the manhunt into a game. And all of America was holding its breath, trembling before the unseen blade swinging in the darkness. The Final Nightmare of Ted Bundy. Florida, 1978. The sky was a deceitful shade of blue, a cruel illusion hiding the horror that was about to unfold. Ted Bundy, the devil in human form, set foot on new hunting grounds after his mad escape from Utah's prison. He was no longer a fugitive. He was death incarnate. His eyes burned with a sickening hunger for blood, his hands trembled with the unbearable urge to kill. January 15th. Florida State University's sorority house slept soundly, unaware of the nightmare creeping closer. The ancient oak trees outside swayed ominously, whispering a warning no one could hear. At 2:30 a.m., Bundy slithered onto the roof, his gaunt frame slipping through an unlocked window like a ravenous phantom. Inside, Margaret, a young student, drifted in the depths of sleep, completely defenseless. Before she could scream, Bundy's iron grip locked around her throat. The sickening crunch of breaking bone echoed in the stillness. His breath was ragged, his body trembling with vile ecstasy as he violated her lifeless form, his bloodshot eyes gleaming with twisted satisfaction. But his thirst was far from quenched. He stepped into the hallway, the invisible scythe of death in his grasp, his footsteps heavy with doom. Lisa was next. Her muffled screams were swallowed by the darkness as Bundy's wooden club came crashing down. Over and over, he struck each blow more brutal than the last until her body lay limp and lifeless. Two more girls were attacked, but luck or fate allowed them to fight back. Their desperate screams shattered the silence, forcing Bundy to flee through the window. But the monster had not yet been sated. A trail of carnage. Hours later, in a nearby apartment, a fashion design student fell victim to Bundy's unrelenting fury. He bashed her skull repeatedly against the floor. Blood pooled around her head, thick and glistening. The sound of cracking bones filled the air, a ghastly symphony played in the dead of night. But he wasn't done. February 9th. 12-year-old Kimberly Lynch walked out of school, never to return. Bundy's shadow fell over her like a curse. A swift hand, a muffled cry, and she was gone. 8 weeks later, her body was found in a steel shed near a pig farm. Rotting. Ravaged by wild animals. Her hollow eyes seemed to whisper from the grave, condemning the monster who had stolen her young life. The reckoning. The entire country shuddered in terror. 75 officers, forest rangers, and tracking dogs scoured every inch of Florida. But Ted Bundy moved like a ghost, always one step ahead. Until fate intervened. A stolen car. A routine traffic stop. Inside, police found 21 stolen credit cards, all belonging to young women. The final pieces of the puzzle had fallen into place. Bundy was caught. Cuffed. Yet his cold, mocking smile never faded. Behind bars, he sat across from journalist Hughes Allisworth, his voice smooth, his manner unervingly charming. He spoke of his dark childhood, a bastard child, beaten by his grandfather, rejected by his first love, Diana. His vengeance had shaped him into a monster. "I'm not afraid," he whispered. "Because I know how to win." The Devil's Execution. January 24th, 1989. Florida State Prison blazed with light. A crowd roared outside, hungry for justice. Ted Bundy, the butcher of at least 30, perhaps even 40 women, was strapped to the electric chair. The switch was thrown. The machine howled. Voltage ripped through his body. The acrid stench of burning flesh choked the air. His body convulsed violently. His bulging eyes stared into nothingness. And then, stillness. Silence. The demon was dead. But his shadow? It would haunt the world forever. Outside, the mother of a victim wept bitterly. This death isn't enough to pay for what he did. Her cries mixed with the cold wind, an eternal curse upon the killer with an angel's face.